Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
Today, April 1st, is Holy Thursday, 2021. And these are today's headlines. Pope Francis celebrates the Chrism Mass in St. Peter's Basilica. A priest is killed in an attack on a parish in Nigeria. And UNICEF is calling for further efforts to alleviate the debt crisis facing developing nations. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells. Our top story: in his homily during the Chrism Mass this Holy Thursday in St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Francis said, "The hour of joyful proclamation of the gospel and the hour of persecution and the cross go together." Lydia O'Kane has more.
In his homily during Holy Thursday's Chrism Mass, Pope Francis underlined that the preaching of the gospel is always linked to the embrace of some particular cross.
Che l'ora dell'annuncio gioioso e l'ora della persecuzione della croce vanno insieme.
He explained that the gospel shows us the extent to which persecution and the cross are linked to the proclamation of the gospel. Dwelling on the hours leading to Christ's passion and death, Pope Francis said, "The hour of joyful proclamation, the hour of persecution, and the hour of the cross go together. The gentle light of God's word shines brightly in well-disposed hearts," the Pope said, "but awakens confusion and rejection in those that are not. We see this over and over again in the Gospels." Giving some examples, Pope Francis spoke of the good seed sown in the field that bears fruit, but it also arouses the envy of the enemy. The tender love of the merciful Father irresistibly draws the prodigal son home, but also leads to anger and resentment on the part of the elder son, he noted. All this enables us to see that the preaching of the good news is mysteriously linked to persecution and the cross, said Pope Francis. Focusing on two trains of thought, the Pope said that firstly, we are taken aback to see the cross present in the Lord's life at the very beginning of his ministry, even before his birth.
Non meraviglia constatare che la croce è presente nella vita del Signore all'inizio del suo ministero e perfino prima della sua nascita.
All this makes us realize that the mystery of the cross is present from the beginning. The cross does not appear by chance, he said. When his hour came, explained Pope Francis, Jesus embraced the cross fully. For on the cross, there can be no ambiguity. The cross is non-negotiable. Dwelling on his second point, the Pope said, there is an aspect of the cross that is an integral part of our human condition, our limits and our frailty. Yet it is also true that something happens on the cross that does not have to do with our human weakness, but is the bite of the serpent, who, seeing the crucified Lord defenceless, bites him in an attempt to poison and undo all his work. It is the venom of the evil one who keeps insisting, save yourself. It is in this harsh and painful bite that seeks to bring death that God's triumph is ultimately seen, said Pope Francis. The Pope went on to say that thanks to the reconciling blood of Jesus, it is a cross that contains the power of Christ's victory, which conquers evil and delivers us from the evil one. The way we embrace the cross in our preaching of the gospel makes two things clear, the Pope said. That the sufferings that come from the gospel are not ours, but rather the sufferings of Christ in us, and that we do not preach ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord and ourselves as servants of all for the love of Jesus. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
The Paschal Triduum begins Thursday evening with the Mass in Cena Domini of the Lord's Supper. Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, will preside at the Mass at St. Peter's Basilica in place of Pope Francis this evening. That Mass will be broadcast live on the Vatican News media stations, including our webpage, as well as Vatican Radio, and on radio and television stations around the world. We do invite you to join us. We'll have live English commentary of the Mass. A new book gives a detailed account about the stages in the creation of the human fraternity document before it was eventually signed on February 4th, 2019 by Pope Francis and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar in Abu Dhabi. The Pope and the Grand Imam, A Thorny Path, A Testimony to the Birth of Human Fraternity is the title of a recently published book by Judge Mohammed Abdel Salam, the Secretary General of the Higher Committee of Human Fraternity. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
The press release describes the book as recounting the bold, accelerated steps taken by the Grand Imam and Pope Francis towards promoting interfaith dialogue. Their unique relationship, the author says, began with the Grand Imam's first visit to the Vatican, to which Pope Francis responded with a visit to Al-Azhar headquarters in Cairo, Egypt. The press release then notes that the book features 2 forewords, one by His Eminence Professor Ahmed Al-Tayeb, Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, and one by His Holiness Pope Francis of the Catholic Church. The book also includes a special section featuring comments on the book by a group of high-profile politicians, academics, and leaders from around the world. According to the press release, the author, who currently serves as Secretary General of the High Committee for Human Fraternity, was an eyewitness to most stages in the creation of the document, as he previously served as a special advisor to the Grand Imam for more than 8 years. During this period, Judge Abdel Salam participated effectively in promoting interfaith dialogue and achieving rapprochement among religious institutions, the most significant of which is a relationship between Al-Azhar and the Vatican. The book has been released in Arabic and English and is expected to be translated into several other languages. Now available in many libraries, the book will be showcased at Arab and international book fairs and will be available on international bookstores' websites. Judge Mohammed Abdel Salam pointed out that the phrase "a thorny path" in the book's title indicates the obstacles and difficulties that were only overcome by the persistence of the 2 great religious figures, Professor Ahmed Al-Tayeb and his brother Pope Francis, and their firm belief in the significance of such document and its putting into practice regardless of challenges. The author also commended the UAE leadership's sincere patronage of the document. Finally, the press release notes that the author has dedicated the book to his homeland, Egypt, in recognition of the favors the country has bestowed upon him, as well as its place as a role model of coexistence and peace. I'm Francesca Merlo.
In world news, Father Ferdinand Nguben and at least 3 other people were killed in an attack by gunmen in Nigeria's Benue state, in yet another instance of growing insecurity in the West African nation. Father Benedict Mayaki has the latest.
A Catholic priest, Father Ferdinand Fanen Nguben, and at least 3 other people were killed in an attack on Tuesday at a parish in Benue State in Nigeria's Middle Belt region. Local news sources said that the priest had just finished celebrating the morning mass and was within the church premises when the unknown assailants shot at him. Up until the tragic attack, Father Nguben served as the assistant priest at St. Paul Quasi Parish, Ayetwa, in the Katsina Ala local government area. He was ordained a priest in July 2015. A Wednesday statement from the Chancellor of the Diocese of Katsina Ala, Father Fidelis Fele Akumbul, recounts that after celebrating Mass on Tuesday morning, Father Nguben prepared to leave for Chrism Mass at St. Gerard Majella Cathedral, Katsina Ala, when pandemonium broke out among the internally displaced persons who took refuge in the parish premises. Father Ferdinand went out to find out the cause of the confusion, and he was shot in the head as he tried to take cover after sighting armed gunmen. Eyewitnesses also recount that several houses were set ablaze during the Tuesday attack. Confirming the incident, Police Public Relations Officer of Benue Command, DSP Catherine Anene, said that the bodies had been deposited in a hospital in Benue State. The police spokesperson also added that a joint operation of police and other security agencies is on the trail of the hoodlums. The tragic killing of Father Nguben adds to the long list of instances of rising insecurity in Nigeria. This latest attack comes just a few days after the release of another priest, Father Harrison Egwenu of the Diocese of Warri, who was kidnapped by gunmen on the 15th of March. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
The United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, released a new report on Thursday laying out a debt crisis that is facing developing nations. As Devin Watkin reports, 1 in 8 nations spend more servicing their debt than on social services like education.
Protecting children's rights in low- and middle-income nations requires rich nations to continue offering debt relief so as to stave off a looming debt crisis linked to COVID-19. This statement sums up the conclusions of a new report released on Thursday by UNICEF, the UN Children's Agency, entitled COVID-19 and the Looming Debt Crisis. Among its major findings is the worrying fact that 1 in 8 nations spends more on interest payments on government debt than on social expenditure. This disparity in spending means that millions of children receive substandard education, healthcare, and social protections. Citing reports from the International Monetary Fund, the report notes that 25% of developing nations are currently experiencing or at a high risk of facing debt distress. The children living in these countries total around 200 million. As the global economy contracts and revenues fall, the growing burden of debt interest threatens to crowd out social spending still further, the report reads. UNICEF praises the efforts of G20 nations to provide temporary debt relief through June 2021. This appears to have had some effect in maintaining social spending on health and social protection in the 46 countries participating, it says, although spending on education has contracted. Yet UNICEF laments that only 1/3 of eligible nations have signed up for the Debt Service Suspension Initiative and says that further research into low uptake needs to be undertaken. The report also states that relief does not cover commercial creditors, leaving middle-income countries increasingly exposed. Initial reports from UNICEF country offices suggest that COVID-19 has negatively affected social spending in indebted countries, in sectors including education, child protection, nutrition, and water, sanitation, and hygiene, it warns. I'm Devin Watkins.
Finally, the tiny Catholic community of Mongolia is living a strong spiritual communion as it approaches Easter amid the restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's sadness, but also a lot of hope, says Bishop Giorgio Marengo, the prefect apostolic of Ulaanbaatar, the capital of the vast Central Asian country. Robin Gomes has the story.
Although the pandemic has forced the closure of places of worship and the total suspension of religious meetings, Bishop Giorgio Marengo of the Apostolic Prefecture of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia is convinced that the faithful will still experience an Easter full of love and hope. This was clearly noticeable in the tone of his voice when he explained to Vatican News that there is a bit of sadness among the faithful, but at the same time they understand well the emergency and know how to be united and face the difficulties with a spirit of cohesion. The Italian Consolata missionary said they have been streaming Holy Masses live to offset the difficulties caused by the restrictions. Besides, we go to visit families in their homes and sometimes we celebrate the Eucharist there. It becomes a domestic mass, the 46-year-old bishop said. The Apostolic Prefecture of Ulaanbaatar, which is not a fully fledged diocese as yet, is made up of only 1,300 Catholics who live in 8 parishes. 5 of these parishes are in the capital and the rest outside. The vast nation, which is 5 times the size of Italy, is inhabited by only a little over 3 million people. Despite the small number, Bishop Marengo said, it is not easy for priests and missionaries to look after the little flock. However, with creativity, he said, new systems have been put in place to stay close to every faithful. He said, we have given life to some catecheses that are better suited to emergency situations such as the current one. The Prefecture Apostolic has organized groups of 5 people, the maximum number permitted under the COVID-19 restrictions. Catechists equipped with written texts and videos go out and minister to these groups. It's only 29 years ago that the church in Mongolia has been able to resume its evangelizing mission openly. Prior to that, the church was under the harsh communist regime for 7 decades. The first Catholics who came into contact with the new missionaries had actually founded the first Catholic communities of the country. I am Robin Gomes.
And that's all the time we have for this edition of Vatican and World News. A reminder that we'll be providing live coverage of all the papal liturgies for the Triduum on our www.vaticannews.va website and on radio and television stations around the world. In the Vatican, I'm Christopher Wells.